Hello and welcome to the King Cole video of how to knit with our Krystal range. There's quite a few in the Krystal range. We've got Krystal Fur, Glitter, Krystal Glamour, the original one, Krystal Sport and some Krystal Boa. The thing that they all have in common is that they have a little lace section near the top to knit with. And we're going to look at how to knit, how to cast on, how to knit and purl, and then how to cast off with this. So I shall just move all this to one side and we can get started. Okay, so this is just a ball of the basic, and you can see if I lay it out there that it's a series of lace that's all been woven together. And for this one we do recommend a 6.5mm needle. You can go a bit thicker and you can go a bit thinner because this yarn is self-tensioning. The stitches are never going to be any bigger or smaller than one of these holes, so it's fairly sort of flexible on that. Now to cast on, I like to go in from the back like so, and then on to the next one, and all you're doing here is picking up the loops. So you can see how I'm doing that here. Now just a little tip that I tend to do when I'm casting on, because you can end up with a slightly messy edge there. So just a little tip is I fold the yarn back on itself so that bit's behind, and then just for the first row I pick up through 2 loops. So I get one from the back and then the next one along, and then I pick up another 2, so that's one from the back, one from the front, and then this way again, one from the back, one from the front. And then for this video I'm going to pick up another 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you've now got your stitches cast on. Those pairs are going to be knit as one stitch, so just treat them as though they're one stitch. And what you do is very simple. You are knitting as normal, so you go into your stitch as though you were going to knit it, but take a loop, pop that round, bring it through, slip it off. So it's just a normal knit stitch in, take the loop, wrap it round, slip it off, in, oops, take the loop, wrap it round, slip it off. When I've got to my first pair, so go into both of them, so I'm in through both holes, wrap it round, just knit them together, and that just becomes one simple stitch. Same again, taking the top loop every time, and once more. So that is your first row. I'm just going to knit you a couple more rows. You can see there how it's already starting to thicken up, and at first it looks like it's going to be really short, but one ball actually does do a scarf. Depending on the length you want it, you can do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches. It's entirely up to you. If you want long and thin, do less stitches and a longer piece of fabric, or you can have it shorter and wider. So just taking one loop from across the top each time, and obviously take your time. It is a little bit slippy, so you don't want to rush this and end up with it all falling off your needles, because it's a bit of a nightmare to pick it back up if you do start to drop your stitches. So first loop, round and across, and I'll show you in a minute the effect that you will get, which is really rather nice. Okay, so you can see here how it's starting to layer up quite nicely on both sides. So that is what will happen if you are just knitting with it. Now you can also purl. I have to say purling is a little bit more faffy. Oops, got that wrong. Let's do it cleanly. So if you knit you're going sort of round in a spiral really, and you will end up with this layering on both sides. But if you purl, then all the ruffle will end up at one side. So, let's say this one's a bit more faffy to do. So here we go. So I've gone in from the back as you would normally, because it is a normal purl stitch, and then you have to wrap it round there, which I appreciate might be a bit difficult to see. Take that, wrap it round, and again. Okay, so purling with it, and you'll see you start to get a flatter section. So if I now just unravel a bit more of this, one thing that I find useful is just to go along, spread it out a little bit. It just makes it a little bit easier to knit as you're going along. So if I do now another knit row, so in effect I'm doing a stocking stitch with it, which is your alternate knit row, purl row, and I'll show you the difference between the back and the front. That was another knit row. So if I lay that out there now, hopefully you can see that you've now got the stocking stitch showing across the back, and you've got more ruffles at the front. So that's just an alternative way of doing it. But if you just knit, you'll get ruffles all the way around, and if you do knit a row, purl a row, you'll get all the ruffles down one edge. I have seen this done as a rather effective cushion where it's been done with the knit a row, purl a row, obviously on a slightly wider piece. And then it's been sewn to a complementary cushion cover just for the front, and it's really quite pretty. And that's just an alternative. Now I'm going to show you what happens if you need more than one ball to complete a project. Then there's a really simple way of sort of joining in your new piece of yarn, and it does disappear quite nicely into the ruffles. So let's say that I've come to the end of the ball and I've got maybe 3 or 4 pieces left. So let's chop that. So I'm now wanting to start a new ball. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to knit the first stitch to get that out, just so that I'm not right at the very end. Then you take your new ball of yarn and lay it out as you would before. And this time I'm going to go to knit this piece and this piece together. Okay, so in effect I'm laying one on top of the other, and we're going to have double stitches briefly like we did before. So I've gone with those. It is a bit fiddly, but just persevere with it, you'll get there. So I've knit those two together, and then find my next pair, knit them together, and you do this part way across the row. I've only done a couple of stitches there, but you could easily do 3, 4, 5 stitches. It's not crucial how many you do, just as long as you feel that it's anchored securely. So you can see there I'm on with my new yarn. Now the fact that you have a couple of thick stitches in the middle won't make any difference at all to the look of the finished item. Got a bit twirly there. Just untwirl my yarn. There we go. So then you just carry on, depending on what you're making, you either knit or purl across the top of those stitches like you did before. So I've reached my double stitches there as before. Go through both. Knit them both together. And you're off again. Some people, what I've done before actually, where this bit is, after I've worked a few more rows or when I've finished the item, I've just taken a little bit of complementary cotton thread and just sewn them into there, just so that they don't stick out. And I've done the same with the bottom, taken that and just sewn it in, just a couple of stitches there, and that just neatens it all off. Of course, that's up to you. Some people don't mind, it's very much personal preference. So I'm just going to knit one more row and then I'm going to show you how I like to cast off with this. Right. So we're going to assume that I've come to the end of the item, or virtually to the end of the ball. The beauty with this yarn is that I've got 6 stitches there, so I know at the end I probably need double that. I like to sort of double the amount, so let's say that I leave 12 individual loops, and you can do that really easy by just counting across the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, don't have to be exact, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I think we'll go with about that much. That'll do. Cut that off. So I'm at the end here and I'm going to cast off my stitches. So I knit my first one, then I knit the second one, and as with normal casting off, you take the first stitch and pass it over the second, so that's one cast off. You then knit the next stitch, pass it over, and so this is just a standard cast off. Okay, now we have got, oops, forgot to pass that over. There we go. Casting off the last one, so you're at this point. Now I then get the end of my yarn and pull it through, and that just stops anything from running back initially. Now the easiest way, people have different methods of this, so obviously if you see another method and you prefer it, that's absolutely fine. I push that through one of the holes near the end and I tie a knot, and then I basically do the same thing again. I like to have a couple of knots. Now at this point I then get the same thread that I would have been sewing my little end bits in. You can see how it's disappeared, I can't find it. So that I would just tack into there, and with the same thread, obviously cut it off and start again. I like to just over sew that knot just in a couple of places just to secure it, and then when you've done that you can chop that end off quite close to, and although you can see it here, once you start to wear that as an item, that just disappears into your scarf, because your scarf obviously would be split somewhere in the middle with that falling down either side. So any of these little ends can just be sewn in carefully with a little bit of either complementary or clear thread, whichever you've got in your sewing box. So shortest scarf in the world there, but I hope you've found those bits of information useful, and I hope you enjoy making these either for yourself or as gifts. So take care, and we'll see you in the next one.